endorsement vote. Excellent. So we are going to go ahead and record this. We're going to have our candidates come in just a minute or two. I just got a text from Marianela Rivera, one of our founders, who was going to be here today. She was going to speak today. She unfortunately, because of a family thing, she is not able to make it. So we're going to forge on ahead, even without Marianela. Marianela totally with us in spirit. We adore her. We love working with her. So we are going to go ahead. I think it's a few minutes after 5. I think we are going to go ahead and get started. Hope y'all have enjoyed our little photos of events that we did this last summer and fall. Very exciting, getting people really excited about all the policies that we want to get passed, that the State House is blocking, and we're going to elect progressive champions to make that happen. So, Evan, if you don't mind turning off the photos, I am going to say a few words. We were going to start off with Marianela, but instead we are going to, I will just go ahead and intro a little bit about Incorruptible Mass. I suspect since this is being recorded, we'll probably just want to go with speaker view for the recording. Okay. There we go. So we are Incorruptible Mass. This is our first candidate forum. We're very excited to introduce these amazing progressive champions to you. We're excited about them. I just want to thank people for being here and folks who are watching either live or who are watching after the fact. We also want to really thank everybody who has ever volunteered with Incorruptible Mass, people who have donated. We appreciate you so much. We could not do this work without participation. We genuinely believe in grassroots democracy, and we are here to make that happen. So Incorruptible Mass was born when 3 of us, three moms who ran for the state rep in 2020. That was myself, Marianela Rivera, and Damali Vidot. We started dreaming about running a big slate of progressive candidates in 2022, which is on the path to having a state house that truly represents the needs of the diverse people of Massachusetts. And that is what we're doing. Our dream is becoming a reality with these amazing candidates. And right now, the policies that we all here believe in are languishing at the State House, often for decades, because our State House is deeply broken. And at Incorruptible Mass, we're here to flip the balance of power, put a coalition of BIPOC and progressive communities in the driver's seat. So these candidates are really here to be our people on the inside, changing the culture, engaging marginalized people directly in the political process. We're very excited about it. You're using a strategy that has worked on the ground in a number of different cities. We're going to talk just a minute about that. We want all of you here to understand what Incorruptible Mass is about. Evan, it does look like you may be the pinned person. So for the
I would
recording,
love to undo that. Yeah.
Just pause for 1 second. I'll go ahead and keep talking because it's mostly about, I'll pause. Great. So, I want to start off I want to thank some of the folks at the core of this organization. I wake up every day. I really can't believe that I get to work with all these amazing people. I must have done something right with my life because I have so much admiration for Damali Vidot, city councilor in Chelsea, who is, working closely with us. Marianela Rivera, just an expert in education policy, was on the school board in Lawrence, super amazing. And also I have the great fortune to work directly every week. We get to work with Jordan Berg Powers and Jonathan Cohn, 2 of the most amazing people in progressive politics. I just have so much admiration for them, and really kind of at the heart of this organization with all their expertise. And I'm just going to talk for a little bit about what Incorruptible Mass is doing and the strategy. Many people here have probably heard me talk about our strategy. I have had a great fortune of being sort of a guide to people in a lot of different cities across the United States in using this strategy to flip the balance of power in their city council and on their school board. I'm really dedicated to this strategy because I've seen it work on the ground. It not only elects a lot more progressives than we normally are able to do, it doesn't just engage marginalized voices in the political process. It doesn't just build our issue movements, it really succeeds in flipping the balance of power. And we know that because the legislation that passes once we get to elect these folks is really fantastic. People over profit, progressive legislation gets passed pretty quickly, and that's what we want here in Massachusetts. Just a note on the word incorruptible and why we use it. It is really designed to make you think and to ask questions like, hey, is anybody really incorruptible? At the core of our strategy is a recognition that we the people, we don't just lose at the ballot box. We lose often after we elect folks once they get into office, because our political system is designed to move them in only one direction, that is away from the needs of the vast majority of Americans and toward the demands of the powerful few. So we know that no one is incorruptible, not me, not you, not these 6 wonderful people that you're about to meet. But this strategy can act as a guide for how we create the environment where elected officials remain champions of our progressive policies. And really, we understand something that the folks I learned this strategy from on the West Coast say very clearly, which is that if you don't support your elected officials, then you have to expect them to turn to the other side. So when we elect people and then we walk away and we don't provide them the support that they need, they turn to the only people who have a plan, and that's the powerful. So we provide a lot of support for our electeds after the election is over. That's when our work really begins. And it's beautiful because it also leads to a deeper democracy. So things like, for example, we encourage our candidates to put together a sort of kitchen cabinet that includes leaders in marginalized communities to regularly engage them in our strategy around policy. One of our candidates tonight is already doing that before we even mentioned it. We also provide legal help, constituent services help, a lot of this that our elected officials need in order to get their jobs done. So a couple other things to know about Incorruptible Mass before we introduce our amazing candidates. One is that we understand that to create the world that we want, we have to be builders. So no matter how much we dislike the other side, we can't move forward by working against. All our energy is spent building the world we want. And then we fundamentally believe in grassroots democracy. So we hope that everyone here will get involved. This plane is only flying because so many people are already involved, and we want your creativity and your feedback, your energy, your expertise. So please join us in rebuilding democracy in Massachusetts from the ground up. So that was probably way more than you wanted to know. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce my amazing teammate, Frances, who is an incredible organizer in her own right, to introduce the candidates. Frances, if you would take it away.
Thank you, Anna. So I am honored to introduce these phenomenal candidates. The last time I introduced a candidate for office, it was none other than Senator Bernie Sanders himself in front of a crowd of 5,000 in Springfield, Massachusetts. I will say that Zoom is more intimidating, but I am legitimately as excited about this growing slate of candidates and their potential to transform the future of Massachusetts. First, I want to introduce you all to the candidate who declared way before anyone else. She has been running since June of last year. That is dedication and vision. Vivian Virgil. Vivian Virgil is a Black woman, a first-generation immigrant from Uganda, and a mom. She is running to fill the seat formerly held by Tammy Gavea. We love Tammy. We know the district deserves another progressive champion. There are other candidates running in the district, so let me just point out, Vivian is the only candidate in the district committed to our policy platform. So we love Vivian. More importantly, she is a leader in revitalizing grassroots democracy. She has a wealth of experience hosting listening sessions in the community. She's been hosting them in her district for months. Her work has included empowering women in Africa and ensuring that governments are accountable to the people. She's been supportive of Incorruptible Mass since last summer, and we love working with her. Vivian, the stage is yours.
We're having trouble getting, oh wait, there. We're having trouble getting her out of the breakout room. She's coming, here she comes. She's on her way.
Hello, Vivian, take it away.
Oh, that's
The floor is yours.
Oh,
Vivian, where are you?
I'm here.
Here.
So I got
Yay!
invitation to a breakout room. So I
Thank
got
you.
a little confused. I'm sorry if I missed anything.
We just gave you a glowing introduction and we would love to hear from you.
Oh dear, I missed my own introduction, missing my own wedding. Well, thank you so much for whatever was said. I got the tail end of Francis talking about it. But anyway, my name is Vivian Virgil, and I'm running for state representative for the 14th Middlesex district. It's an open seat, and I'm running to combat climate change, to make healthcare a right, to increase state funding for education, public schools, to improve our public transportation, protect our environment, and most importantly, make government more transparent. So I live in Acton with my husband and 2 girls, and I work for Acton TV, producing shows about issues that are going on in our community, our Commonwealth, and our country. So I also serve on the board of directors for the Acton-Boxborough United Way that works directly with our citizens, with our residents and organizations that are providing relief services to our community. I'm also a co-operator for Emerson Hospital, where I was actually called on to train the nurses and caregivers in the perinatal unit to provide culturally competent care to improve the service that they are giving to immigrant mothers, because they were having big challenges. And so I'm proud to say that I'm actively actually being a part of the change that I'm running to make in the State House. And I have a background in fighting for government transparency against corruption through my work with the African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption, where I'm again proud to say that I mobilized legislators to pass the country's first access to information legislation. So when it comes to governance, I strongly believe that a diversity of opinions creates better policy, and that representation really matters and is critical as a critical foundation for transformation and progressive change. So I'm running to bring the whole concept of community into legislation, to act as a link between our legislature and residents of the district and local governments, and also the Commonwealth, and to be a gatekeeper for our residents' well-being. And the values I bring to this candidacy are those of respect for the dignity of everyone, with a focus on those on the margins of our society. The values of hard work, respect, struggle for equity, both financially and socioeconomic areas, and fiercely protecting the environment that feeds and nurtures us. I also believe in building networks of like-minded individuals and organizations to propel the progressive change that we need in our community and country. And when, for example, when we are fighting, when we are creating environmental policy, justice, and climate change, we need somebody in that room who will quickly point out the cultural impacts of, for example, transition to clean energy. Someone who will raise their hand and say, ask the question, how will this policy affect certain habits and cultures that are not considered usually in the mainstream, while making legislations? How will this affect the diets and cooking habits of our community members? So this thinking outside the box is the only way to address challenges with progressive policies in ways that appeal to all people of all cultures. And if everyone can see their place in, for example, a green future or in our progressive policies, then our movement wins. And, I'm proud to say that as a campaign, we have brought together the Endorsement of Mass Alliance, and it's Eldridge, who is who fights for the people, Representative Dan Cena, Elect Black Women PAC, and many local elected officials in our district. And I would like to, end by thanking Incorruptible Mass for considering our campaign and my candidacy and nominating us for an endorsement. I look forward to working with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vivian. Our next candidate is Teresa English. We know Teresa from her run for state rep in 2020 in the 22nd Middlesex district. When COVID hit, Teresa and her team of progressive activists were appalled at the actions of their Republican state rep. She knew that someone had to run against him, so she did it herself. Teresa ran a late start write-in campaign in the general election and won 45% of the vote, which is incredible. So she comes into this election cycle not only with experience running a great campaign, but also with deep conviction to progressive policy, supporting working class people, and fighting for transparency and democracy in government. Welcome, Teresa.
Thank you so much. If you're looking for a job, I could totally use you to just introduce me everywhere. That was fantastic. So hi, everyone. My name is Teresa English, and I'm running for state representative of Billerica. I'm running to ensure our town is no longer overlooked and disregarded on Beacon Hill. I'm a mom, Air Force veteran, and public school teacher, ready to advocate for the people of Billerica and to be part of making the changes needed to realize our community's potential. I'm proud to work with Incorruptible Mass because the strategy of supporting candidates after they win is a game changer. When I see a problem, I immediately start working to identify solutions and then implement the best one. We've known about the problems destroying our democracy for generations. The imbalance of power right now looks a lot like the 1920s. And the attacks on the foundation of democracy look a lot like the 1860s. But maybe that's just because I'm a history nerd. I see my campaign as one of the solutions needed to fix the unacceptable dysfunction on Beacon Hill. With your support and the brilliant strategy of Anna and the rest of Incorruptible Mass, I feel much more confident that I will be able to enact the changes that we desperately need. As Billerica State Representative, I will be a tireless advocate in connecting community members with the services they need and advocating on their behalf. Additionally, I will be committed to fighting for local aid and ensuring our students and teachers get the resources and state funding they need for our schools. I will prioritize making sure our healthcare system works for everyone, not just those that can afford it. Lastly, I will be committed to passing common sense solutions to address the outcomes of climate change that disproportionately impact those with the fewest resources. Together, we're capable of anything, and I'm ready to lead the way and advocate on behalf of the entire community. I hope to earn your support over the course of the campaign so that we can fight for a better Commonwealth together. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Our next candidate is Raul Fernandez. Raul is currently a select board member in Brookline, where he has been engaged in grassroots democracy since long before he became an elected official. Raul grew up in public housing in a union family. He's talked to us about his goals to have a more inclusive government where policy properly reflects underrepresented communities. And he's already put together his own advisory table that includes marginalized people in his district, right up our alley. Raul's running against an incumbent in the 15th Norfolk district. We know that Raul will be a fierce advocate for progressive policy and a huge improvement over the incumbent. And we are thrilled about his commitment to fighting for racial and economic justice. Raul, take it away.
Francis, thanks for the wonderful introduction. This is great. Hey, everybody. As Francis said, my name is Raul Fernandez. I'm the vice chair of the Brookline Select Board and also running for state representative in Brookline. I have lots to say about the politics of the state house, but let me first start by telling you a little bit about my personal background. I came to Boston originally in 1995 as a student at Boston University, but I'm originally from New York. I grew up in a barrio in Spanish Harlem and later in the South Bronx. As Francis mentioned, I'm the son of union members who work for the New York City Transit Authority. I'm a proud union member myself as an educator in SEIU 509. And education plays a really big role in my story. You know, my childhood was marked by this inflection point at the age of 4 when a teacher recommended me for this talented and gifted program, a program that unlocked all kinds of opportunities for me and put me in this well-resourced path to public exam schools like Manhattan East and Bronx Science and ultimately to Boston University. But by the time I went to BU, I was actually the only person in my neighborhood that I knew that went to college. And I think what that really illustrates for me is the idea that different opportunities lead to different outcomes for people. And when we see different outcomes based on things like race or gender or other things that shouldn't have any business determining people's ability to survive or thrive, then we have to look at the opportunities that were there or not there in the first place. It's our responsibility to actually look for those barriers and create those opportunities. So that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years on the select board. It's why I led a community process to reimagine policing and put community safety and mental health first. It's why I successfully fought for an environmental justice seat on our town's Zero Emissions Advisory Board. And it's why I created a working group to support our town's housing authority, having had that personal experience living in public housing. But the reality is that we lack leaders with real lived experience in the State House. And we see that manifest in really devastating ways. The root of it is that our legislature operates to preserve the status quo rather than change it, especially when it comes to racial and economic justice. We have state reps that refuse to make their votes public because they rather protect their relationship to House leadership than fight for the policies that their constituents need. We have necessary life-changing bills that are dying in committee. That includes Brookline home rule petitions that would have expanded local voting rights to 16 and 17-year-olds and to non-citizens, and a real estate transfer fee that, if it would have been approved by the legislature, would have already generated $37 million in 2 years to create and preserve permanently affordable housing in Brookline alone. The old boy politics at the State House is a serious issue that's costing us real dollars and delaying much needed progress. I've signed the Act on Mass Transparency pledge like others have and committed to making my votes public because our constituents deserve to know how we vote. My commitment to open leadership won't end there. As a state rep, the first people I look to inform my policymaking process won't be House leadership. They'll be the community members whose lived experience align with the problems they're trying to solve. A lot of candidates have a kitchen cabinet, but I do have that kitchen table, and it's a big table. It's accessible, and it's especially to folks who are normally left out of the political process. Those are the people I'll be accountable to as state rep, not the House Speaker. Hope you'll consider supporting me and our campaign. I know we share the same core values, and I'm excited to fight alongside all of you to change the way our legislature operates and to deliver real racial and economic justice. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Raul. Next, we have Heather May running in the 9th Middlesex. Heather is an educator, a mom, and an active organizer in her union. She's dedicated to climate action, women's reproductive rights, and supporting workers in unions. She understands that the culture of the State House has to change if we're going to pass transformative policy. And she knows that integrity is crucial to changing that culture. She's running in one of our priority districts, which means that when our coalition got together last summer to identify target districts we felt were especially important to find great candidates in, this is one of those districts. Why? Because the incumbent gets a solid D rating over the last 6 years of their voting record. So we need Heather. Heather, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Francis. Yes, a solid D. And as an educator, I can tell you that's not good. So I am Heather May, and I'm running for the 9th Middlesex District, which is most of Waltham. I was picking my son up from school today, and one of my favorite songs came on. It's a Casey Musgrove song called The Good Old Boys Club. And we were listening to it for a while, and my son, who is 8, said, "I don't understand this song." And I said, "Well, do you know what the phrase Good Old Boys Club means?" And he said no, because he's 8. And so we talked about patriarchy and privilege and power and how important it is to the patriarchy to preserve their power. And it's not the first conversation that we've had about that, but he gets it, and he's 8. So, I look at the incumbent in our district who has been there for 20 some years. He's also a city councilor. He's been on the ballot pretty much every year since 1988. And and that's all he's ever done. He has not ever worked really, except for being a state rep, in which some of us would argue he's not doing any work. I'm really excited to work with an organization like Incorruptible Mass, because I think that you all understand that the reality of this election goes beyond any district or any individual office. If we cannot change the culture of the state house, there's no way that we can create the kind of democracy that the people of Massachusetts deserve. My opponent, like Raul was mentioning, my opponent has voted against every single transparency bill that has come forward. He's voted against any kind of police reform. He voted against the real estate transfer fee. So he's, done all of these, voted against all of these things that could be very beneficial to the people of Waltham and to the people of Massachusetts. And at the same time as doing that, he's taken over $300,000 from developers and CEOs and lobbyists. He spent 20 years voting like the speaker in order to, put himself in good favor with the speaker. And so, that to me says that he's not answering to the constituents, he is answering only to the speaker. I recently heard Senator Sonia Chang Diaz speak, and she said she's really tired of politicians who are running to protect their power and not to make progress. And I just thought that that was perfect. Like, that's exactly what the incumbent is doing, and certainly lots of the people that we here are running against. The chances are that us here tonight have a pretty good understanding of why the transparency issues are so important to government in Massachusetts. But one of the things that I'm noticing on the doors is that people don't necessarily understand that, and there's a bit of a disconnect. But it doesn't take very long to really help people understand why that transparency has to be a cornerstone of our democracy. And so, I think that we need to reach as many people as we possibly can with these conversations. We can't continue to let people attempt to govern under the cover of darkness. We need to shine a light on what is happening. So I hope to earn your endorsement tonight, and I hope to continue to earn that endorsement over my time in the State House in the 9th Middlesex District. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Heather. Our next two candidates are especially exciting for us here at Incorruptible Mass. We love all our candidates equally, of course, but we always wanted to be an engine for finding great candidates and convincing them to run in Massachusetts, where we have the lowest rate of challenging incumbents in any state house in the country. These next two candidates are running in part because we encourage them to run. Shaquita Barty is a Boston public school teacher, a union organizer, and a mom. She comes to politics after trying to make the world a better place in many other ways, including working with folks struggling with addiction on Mass and Cass. She's fiercely dedicated to issues like Medicare for all and affordable housing because of her own lived experience. We love her personality. We love her dedication. She's been a volunteer with us for the better part of a year. Shaquita is running in the 11th Norfolk against an incumbent who Progressive Mass rates a C- over the last 6 years of their voting record. So we are thrilled that she's running. Shaquita, you have the stage.
Thank you so much, Francis. I miss seeing you all. And thank you to Anna and everyone else for talking me into this. My Zoom has been acting super crazy, so I'm so sorry if at any point I get cut off. But I'm just gonna pull what I have prepared. If this moves quickly. Okay, so I've lived in Boston my entire life, and not the Boston my cousins in the South think of when they envision Boston. I grew up in Dorchester, a community ravished by gun violence, food insecurity, housing insecurity, and. As a middle school teacher, one philosophy I live by is that my students should have both windows and mirrors. Windows so they can see and appreciate the experiences of others, but mirrors so they have reflections of the greatness that they are. I believe the same should be true for my community in relation to government. We have enough windows at the State House. I should be a mirror. My own life, coupled with, I'm sorry, it call came through. So my own life, coupled with the experiences of people in my community that I've witnessed, have helped shape me to be the best person for this position. At 15, I became a mom to an amazing child. I was told I would not graduate or make it far as a result. Markel is one of the reasons that I'm in front of you today. Being a 16-year-old mom and homeless opened my eyes to some of the inequalities in my community. My own struggles with housing security helped me realize that there were so many in my community who did not have adequate housing. Being denied mental health treatment for my child who was on the verge of suicide opened my eyes to the issues surrounding healthcare. All of the bruises I get on my body once every few days for the MS injections I have to take have exemplified those inequities even more for me. My brother, now 39, has been on probation since he was 16 for stealing a bike, while my cousin, who was murdered in Dorchester, never received any justice. This opened my eyes to the flaws in both the criminal and juvenile justice system. Watching the drug users I worked with be condemned for their drug use, while we praise women who want autonomy over their bodies, magnifies the criminalization of drug use and homelessness. Watching children be removed from their homes because their parents can't afford to feed them exasperates the ways that we can criminalize poverty in our community rather than provide resources. Watching the Black and brown bodies of the students I teach be policed at their every move further exposes the reformation of public education, which is so desperately needed. The time for change is now. We need a person who will address systemic issues and not just the ones I've spoken about for our community. And who better than me, who is living with you? Let me be your mirror. Let's get better with Bartee. Let's demand and enact change together with Bartee. Let's get out, and make things better with Bartee. Oh my goodness, I can't hear. I'm not sure why.
That's all right. Francis, you're muted. We were all muted. we're blown away by you, Shaquita.
Yeah, hell yeah, Shaquita. Hell yeah, totally blown away. Thank you so much. Oh, our final candidate, certainly not least but last tonight, is Timmy Sullivan. Timmy heads up BNOM, a nonprofit dedicated to debt-free public education from pre-K to higher ed. Timmy has, in fact, helped me personally navigate my own student loan nightmare, higher now than when I graduated 16 years ago. Timmy is a member of the LGBTQ+ community. He is dedicated to inclusion and representation for the underrepresented communities in Burlington. He is a lifelong fighter for faster climate action, debt-free education, and social justice. Timmy is running in the 21st Middlesex district, which is another one of our priority districts. The incumbent there gets a C rating over the last 6 years. We are so excited that Timmy is bringing a challenge. Timmy, take it away.
Thank you so much. Hey, everyone. It is really great to be with you all today. My name is Timmy Sullivan. I'm from Burlington, Massachusetts, and I'm running to represent Burlington, Bedford, and Newly Lexington as part of our district. Why I'm called to do this and be a part of this campaign with you all is one, because I think that what the mission of Incorruptible Mass is trying to do is really fantastic for our state, and I would love to see some of these changes enacted in my district, which has a severe moderate who uses the excuse of being, in a purple district to not see the similarities that all of us in our district could have really benefiting from progressive policies, but instead over and over again chooses inaction and chooses deference to leadership as a scapegoat. You know, I think that in Massachusetts, we let a lot of really horrible policies slide because of this image that we concede about being super progressive or being this super blue state, when really that hasn't translated into the types of progressive politics that you would think that that would normally entail, right? For climate change, we don't really have a clear and actionable plan to decarbonize the economy by 2030, which is an absolute scientific mandate. Where I went to school in Amherst, just 30, 40 miles down the highway from Springfield, Massachusetts, which is one of the cities that has the highest asthma rate in the country because of the pollution from our vehicles and the exhaust from buildings. 40% of emissions from 40% of carbon emissions in Massachusetts come from our vehicles. We don't have a strong proposal to eliminate that. So we see cities that have some of the highest asthma rates in the country. We have the fastest growing student debt average for public college students in the entire country, right? The education state has a serious and acute student debt issue where public college graduates like myself have an average of $32,750 of student debt for graduating from public education. This is almost the same amount of student debt that private college graduates have. And in fact, there are more public college students with debt in Massachusetts than there are private college graduates with student debt. So this is acutely a public college problem. And we have one of the least transparent state houses in the country. So it's really crazy the amount of horrible kinds of politics that the Commonwealth is allowed to get away with because we continue to invest in this illusion of being this progressive steward for the rest of the country. And I feel like my district is one of those that sort of embodies that illusion of progress when really all that we see is stagnancy, which is dragging us further and further and further behind. So some of the things that I'm really interested in doing, of course, are immediately passing debt-free public higher education for all residents of the Commonwealth. I think this is absolutely a necessity and something that is beyond time for us to do. In Massachusetts, we have no version of this kind of program. I'm interested in immediately starting to decarbonize our economy. And I'm interested in ways that we can do that outside of the formal legislative process as well, banding together with our municipalities and just starting to create microgrid systems so that, you know, our communities are democratically owning our own green and renewable energy systems, and we don't have to wait on the rest of our colleagues in the State House for something like this. I'm interested in the Act on Mass Transparency campaign bills. This is extremely important, and larger than that, I think that, you know, part of the job of candidates like ourselves who are successful at going into the State House would be to expose some of the informal ways that power works and tries to corrupt inside of the State House. We can't change culture if we don't change culture, which means that, you know, we need to be really public in talking about the interactions that we have, and that might invite a lot of fodder against us. But I think that's part of, you know, what we're here to do. And I think part of running a slate of people is to know that we've got each other, that we are a team, that we are a family, and we are each other's backbones. And so that's what, you know, this sort of opportunity makes me really excited for, is to have a group of people who are like-minded and who are coming into this not just for progressive sorts of policies, but also to back one another and being able to challenge the informal ways in which power operates.
Amazing. Thank you, Timmy. Fantastic. And thanks everybody, all of our candidates. We so appreciate them taking the time and coming here. So I want to go ahead and describe how the voting process will work. And by the way, while I'm doing this, if people want to put in the chat any questions that we can have all of our candidates to just give like a little 30-second answer to, feel free to put some questions in the chat, because we'd love to have them do that just briefly. And meanwhile, I am going to describe our voting process. So we will open up the vote. Basically, all of you here, everyone who is a member, will get to vote in our endorsement process. And that vote for these 6 candidates is going to happen starting tomorrow morning at about 8 o'clock in the morning. That does give people, it is starting at 8 o'clock tomorrow, and it'll go through Sunday at midnight. So you'll have all day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to vote. You will get an email from OPA Vote. That's what we're using for doing the vote. And you will get to vote if you are a dues-paying member of the Incorruptible Mass. And so what that means is we are going to send out some emails. We'll attach this recording, a link to the recording. We'll have that in the email to the many folks that are on our volunteer list and on our donor list, just to make sure that everybody who can be a member has access to the vote, to the OPA vote. So in terms of membership, we hope that people will either make a donation of $50 or so per year, or do sort of any monthly dollar amount as a membership, as a monthly dues. That would be amazing. I want to let people know a little bit also about what we're doing. So we have been fortunate enough to be able to hire a part-time person who is super amazing. It's someone who worked with the Justice Democrats when they were launching their 2018 campaigns, including launching campaign, and some of the other fantastic people that the Justice Democrats launched for Congress in 2018. And she is really helping us with what we're going to be starting, what we've been doing, but we're going to be doing even more bigly, in a more large sort of way, starting on Tuesday, April 5th. We are forming a grassroots volunteer crowdsource candidate recruitment process. We have 5 weeks until the until the filing deadline. And so we really believe that we can find more folks to run in Massachusetts, where we literally have the lowest rate of challenging incumbents of any state house in the country. We also have 17 open districts. That always happens. There's always more open districts after redistricting than there are in other years. So there's a lot of open districts, and not all of them have somebody who's really a progressive champion running. So we are going to be organizing people, and that does require that we have folks who, like the wonderful, amazing woman that we have hired, who are able to do that work as staff. So your donations are going to go to a super worthy cause. So please do donate, become a member, and you will get to vote in our endorsement process for the next 3 days, starting tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock and going until Sunday. Because of the way that OPA Vote works, you do have to become a dues paying member by tomorrow morning at 8. So now that you know that, let me take a peek in the chat, which I was not really looking at. Do folks have, if there are questions, if anybody has questions for folks, is there a part of your campaign that you're excited about to reach infrequent voters or non-voters, formerly incarcerated neighbors, housing insecure people, young people who recently turned 18, people who have never before voted? Fantastic question. We're going to do a super quick round for all of the candidates. I will go in reverse order from how we did it before. So Timmy, you have the floor.
Cool. So I can speak to Burlington specifically because it's the part of my district that I'm most familiar with, having grown up here. We are a functionally racially segregated community in that we have these pockets of apartment complexes that are predominantly people of color living there. And one of my friends who I'd gone to high school with, we had met up the other night, and she is doing some of the work on my campaign. And I'd asked her, has anyone ever, she's lived there for all 24 years. I was like, has anyone running for anything ever knocked on your door? And she's like, no, absolutely not. Like, that's not something that happens in the residential area where she lives, which to me is a huge and glaring problem, right? And this housing complex in particular also has some of our immigrant population in Burlington. And I know that this is the case for some of the different apartment complexes in our area. And so for me, it's a huge problem because the way that you would typically run a campaign for like super voters, where you just download the register of everyone who is considered the super voter of always turning out, presents to you a typical population of people who are hyper engaged in the political process, which for like our community is going to be predominantly white also. So that type of campaigning and that type of politics only engages the people whose voice and representation has been heard over and over and over and over and over again in the political process, where taking a different kind of strategy of not just contacting the super voters, but going to people who have never voted before, who are first-time voters, who are not frequently on the voter rolls, and where campaigns do not go before, completely changes the political discourse in our community, because it's directly inviting and incorporating the voices of people whose political representation has not thus far been included in the process.
Thank you,
directly
Timmy.
into the process. Oh, sorry.
That's all right. We're going for like 30 seconds to 1 minute. So amazing. Thank you. And we are, if Shakeeda, I know Shakeeda, your Zoom has been a little funny, but Shakeeda, if you are there, we would love to hear how you can sort of part of your campaign you're excited about to reach infrequent voters or non-voters.
So I think I would be most excited to reach possibly non-voters. In particular, I know this question asked about recently, like incarcerated people. Justice reform, criminal justice reform is something that I'm big on, and I actually believe that we should be having people who are incarcerated vote, since we make money off of them. So for that reason, I would be super excited to engage with them and hear their thoughts about the political system, because so many people I know who have been incarcerated don't care about it because they don't benefit at all from it.
Thank you, Shakeeda. And going backwards in our order here, I have Heather May.
Yeah, I think a couple things that I'm really excited about are we're going to be doing a youth internship program in the summer, because we have a really fabulous group of high schoolers here in Waltham. The high school is actually in terms of demographics, it's predominantly Hispanic. And so it's an interesting, when you look at how Waltham is changing, that the high school kind of shows us that front and center. And so that has become really important to us. We definitely want to engage with them. And then I've been, volunteering with our unhoused community members over the last couple of years. And, really kind of trying to understand the nuances and the uniqueness of the issues that they're experiencing. And so I think definitely working with them to see how they want to be involved and to get people registered to vote. It's great.
Thank you. Raul, how would you answer this question?
Yeah, so I mentioned sort of earlier, we're doing these the sort of expanded kitchen table, and we're building out tables for different populations, including young people and older people and folks that care about a variety of issues. One of them, we had a meeting earlier this week, was a table for folks who live or have lived experience in public housing and subsidized housing. And I think this is going to be, I'm really excited about this, because we are going to be communicating with folks in our community that other campaigns just forget about or ignore or just don't care about. And they've got issues that need to be discussed. And by the way, they also vote. And I think people don't think about them in that way. Also, we're going to do a lot of relational organizing, and relational organizing works best for diverse campaigns. So we're running against an opponent that whose campaign looks a lot like him, and our campaign looks a lot like the variety of folks who live in Brookline. And because of that, whether we're campaigning in public housing or at single family home doors or elsewhere, we're going to be able to leverage the power of the connection of our volunteers to make personal connections with voters, and not just do, although we will do blind door knocking and phone calling, but really building on the relationships of the folks who are part of our campaign. So I hope that's helpful.
Fantastic. Teresa English.
So I'm really excited to just bring an entirely new type of politics to Billerica. In 2016, there was a hyper local election where a lot of the Democrats that are still in power actually encouraged people not to go vote because they wanted to prevent an irrelevant thing from happening, right? It doesn't really matter what it was. It was the fact that they were encouraging people all over the district to not go vote. And that put a really sour taste in a lot of people's, opinions of politics in Billerica. And so it's been really nice to have these conversations about why I think that was a bad idea and what I would have done differently, and really trying to re-engage people that have just kind of fallen away over the last decade.
All right. And Vivian.
Yeah, this is a great question. So one thing that this campaign has exposed me to or introduced me to is the response from certain groups of people that have felt they've been left out of the political process. So, through the course, I've gotten a lot of feedback, not just from people in the district, but from across the country who are watching my race. These are people like first-generation immigrants, renters. These are groups of people that did not realize that you can be a renter in a small apartment and run for state rep, that you can be a first-generation immigrant and run for state rep. And the emails and messages that I'm getting where these people want to change the way they do things and want to break their own barriers and step out of their comfort zone is humbling. So as a strategy, I decided to do more work in these areas. First generation immigrants and renters. I'm already working with a renters group in our town of Acton to try and understand their concerns, when we're talking about climate change and all that, are we remembering renters? I'm doing the same for first generation immigrants. They are so excited that a few of them have come to door knock for their first time because nobody had ever given them an opportunity to door knock. They're learning about civic engagement for the first time because someone like them is running and now they're interested. And if we can, so it's not, when people discount them because they don't have a voting record, it's because they were never given the space to see themselves as being a part of the democratic process. And our campaign at the end of the day is just breaking that.
Thank you so much, Vivian. Well, we are near the end of the hour. Thank you so much to everyone. I want to let people know that we're going to keep the Zoom open for about 10 minutes. We're actually going to have a breakout room just for our candidates so that our candidates can get to know each other for 10 minutes if they're able to stay. And the rest of us, everyone is welcome to stay in this room. And in this room, we'll be asking you for your opinions about who else we should be approaching across Massachusetts, what other candidates you think we should be reaching out to. We would love to get your knowledge and your expertise and your thoughts and your creativity. So if you can stay with us for 10 minutes or so, that would be amazing, while our candidates get a little chance to hang out with each other. Thank you so much to everyone who has come.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Woohoo.
So there's still some of us left, which is great.
The after party's where the real fun happens.
So this is a chance for us to share some ideas and some thoughts about people we might know who are interested in running, getting to know a little bit about the areas of the state that we're from, and just just see if we can do a little outsourcing ourselves about our process and people. Why don't I quickly introduce myself? I'm Martha Carshare. I work with Incorruptible Mass, and Dylan